motherfucking intro. I'm just trying to get that money like 1-0-0-0-0-0-0-0-0-0. I'm here with Gino.
Hey, Danger, coming with them bangers. Tell me where my paper. Still on the same mission, trying to live major. Don't hate me, hate the game. I'm a player. Feeling like Pac. Represent. On my block. Try to knock me down, but I come up on top. Yeah, they wanna see me flop. Got a plot, want a lot. I won't stop on my pops. Got so many flows, it's insane. They don't really understand the game. Got a plan and it's plain, I ain't playing. I'm just trying to game. I wanna get that big bag, need that big racks. Blow up Tic Tac with a blue cheese at. I don't give a fuck about your feedback. Eat that, get back, sit back, watch me spit that kickback. Got so many flows, yeah, they think that I'm insane. Ghetto kids in a lot of pain, all about the bills, ain't shit changed. Danger, coming with them bangers. Tell me where my paper. Still on the same mission, trying to live major. Don't hate me, hate the game, I'm a player. If you a hater, I don't hate you. I'm just really happy that I ain't you. I just wanna thank you. You kept me motivated, so now I motivate you. There's a lot of cake, money on my mind like a banker. Coming through with them bangers, ain't no room for mistakes. Lot of stake, hustle till we get a lot of rooms, lot of stakes. Good kid, but I keep it gangsta. All gas, no brakes. Got cash for the case. More cash in the case. More cash in the safe. More cash on the way. Hustling all day. Ay. Danger, coming with them bangers. Tell me where my paper. Still on the same mission, trying to live major. Don't hate me, hate the game. I'm a player.
Danger, coming with the bang. With my fucking paper.
Said I'm taking big shots, just stop where I'm driven, no pit stops. This hot, I ain't playing like the 6 spot. Pissed off, thought I told him this a chip shot. I ain't missing cause you know I'm taking big shots. Just stop where I'm driven, no pit stops. This hot, I ain't playing like the 6 spot. Pissed off, thought I told him this a chip shot. I ain't missing cause you know I'm taking big shots. They been trying to get me cheap like a thrift shop, but I told them it's my time, check the wristwatch. They been talking way before they even doing something. Whoa. If they wanna play, let's get a tip off. Ain't no silver lining, dawg, this some rose gold. Getting new money, I'm a old soul. Yeah, I get it bouncing like a pogo. Whoa. And I'm too cold like Frozone. And my chick elastic, girl. Told them we ain't in the faking, this ain't plastic, girl. Bought a new whip and cash, now my tax is thorough. Way I'm shooting like step with my passes, bro. The way I'm playing the field, I'm in a league of my own. And now they all in their fields, I got them all on my phone. But dog, I'm hitting the climb, I got no time on the low. Way I'm shooting is messy, the way I'm hitting the goals. I'm taking big shots, just stop. Way I'm driven, no pit stops. This hot, I ain't playing like the 6 spot. Pissed off, thought I told him this a chip shot. I ain't missing cause you know I'm taking big shots. Just stop where I'm driven, no pit stops. This hot, I ain't playing like the 6 spot. Pissed off, thought I told him this a chip shot. I ain't missing cause you know I'm taking big shots. I just left, but you know I'm coming back though. Whoa. And you know I don't play by my rags though. Now go and turn it up to the max, whoa. Send a paper to me now like a fax, whoa. Yeah. Got 2 phones ringing off the hook now. When I'm in the city, I get looks now. I was going bad, but I'm good now. Said I had to go and put my foot down. Told them I'ma get it and go. Even in the summer, man, they knowing I'm cold. I got a couple checks coming that I made out the flows. Might get a couple more popping if I do it some more. I gotta do it for real. Said I'm back in my bag. All my digits are climbing just like they all on a dash. And they tell me slow down cause dog I'm moving too fast. Might go and cop me a Tesla cause dog I still got a gas. Said I'm taking big shots. Just stop where I'm driven, no pit stops. This hot, I ain't playing like the 6 spot. Pissed off, thought I told him this a chip shot. I ain't missing cause you know I'm taking big shots. Just stop where I'm driven, no pit stops. This hot, I ain't playing like the 6 spot. Pissed off, thought I told him this a chip shot. I ain't missing cause you know I'm taking big shots. Just stop where I'm driven, no pit stops. This hot, I ain't playing like the 6 spot. Pissed off, thought I told him this a chip shot. I ain't missing cause you know I'm taking big shots. Just stop where I'm driven, no pit stops. This hot, I ain't playing like a 6 spot. Pissed off, but I told him this a chip shot. I ain't missing cause you know I'm taking big shots.
Here we go, at the top of the class on a roll. And it's time to run it up, yeah you know. Maxed out, put the pedal to the floor. Ayy, on the road, here we go, here we go. Yeah, we winning by a landslide. Never see me coming on my landmine. Yeah, I ain't taking orders in command like. Yeah, you about to see me on demand like. You know on demand. If you ain't know, you about to understand. Yeah, I got the team by my side, right hand. Yeah, take it to a string, you ain't seen it like that. Yeah, and it's the dream, and we coming for the bag. Yeah, and we ain't ever going back now. Future expedited, now we on the fast track now. They won't lend a hand, now they see us on the map now. It's time to act out. Here we go, at the top of the class on a roll. And it's time to run it up, yeah you know. Maxed out, put the pedal to the floor. Hey, on the road, here we go, here we go. Yeah, at the top of the class on a roll. Hey, and it's time to run it up, yeah you know. Yeah, maxed out, put the pedal to the floor. Yeah, on the road, here we go, here we go. Here we go, at the top of the class on a roll. And it's time to run it up, yeah you know. Maxed out, put the pedal to the floor. Hey, on the roll, here we go, here we go. Yeah, at the top of the class on a roll. Hey, and it's time to run it up, yeah you know. Yeah, maxed out, put the pedal to the floor. Yeah, on the roll, here we go, here we go. Here we go. On a roll, here we go, here we go.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Frankie Candles live stream. Bitcoin below $80,000. Is the dump over, or are we going lower? And if we are going lower, can we bounce? And if we're looking for the rejections, where are we going to be looking? Shout out to the Godfather candles. I was just on the phone with my dad, and as you guys know, he sold 126K. And he's like, it's the top, man. And I was like, we'll see. And just talked to him. He's he's like below 80K. But yeah, guys, we got a lot to look at here on the charts. We had the weekly money flow coming out, and we were looking for the lower low. And obviously, we broke it. We already talked about this, but it does look like Bitcoin is right on track here, guys. Looking exactly like 2021. Obviously not looking for the traditional 75 to 80% correction that we normally do. But I want to take a look at the higher time frames, talk about the higher time frame money flow, and then, of course, we'll go over all the local levels that we'll be looking at in case we do get a bounce here. We're below a very key level. So, yeah, shout out to the CandleMafia. We got a very important live stream tonight. Sorry, I was running a little bit late. And give me 1 second here, guys. The camera fan is off, and you guys know what happens if we don't turn that on. Shout out to Mrs. Candle. She does this all the time. And we're back. But shout out to the CandleMafia. Welcome in, guys. Let's see. Shout out to Boomer says, traded patterns and trends for years and lost $70,000. Started trading volume profiles, and I'm finally winning it back. Thanks, Frankie. Yo, shout out to Boomer. Let's go, baby. That's what I love to hear. We were live with the premium Discord earlier, and we're making money. We're making money in the Discord, guys. And the Mafia here, even in the chat, being able to learn these volume profiles and improve their game is what I'm here for. I love to hear it. Shout out to you, brother. Thank you for saying that. We got Rudy in the chat. We got Kalia. What is going on? Jedi Skirt Panda, the Prophet, says, we're going to get rejected like a fat kid looking for a prom date. Shout out to Panda Profit. that's a funny way to say it. Shout out to Panda the Prophet. We got Rudy with an I in the chat. What is going on, brother? Welcome in. Always happy to see you here. Jedi Skirk. And we got Sergeant Squid said, one Suey and a dream, Frankie. Shout out to Sergeant Squid. But guys, we got a lot to look at here in the chat. On the charts, we got Jesse in the chat. We got Darren Does Things and Tony D holding it down. Thank you guys for being here as always. And without further ado, let's go ahead and break down this Bitcoin breakdown. Let's get into it. So, guys, here we are on the Bitcoin chart. And shout out to Carlos, says, happy Monday, Frankie and the Mafia. Welcome in, brother. But as we see here, guys, obviously Bitcoin getting the breakdown with the lower high and the lower low coming in, which, of course, has been our overall thought process here, even if we were going to come up and take those highs. Very likely to see that lower low come in at some point, looking for the break below $80,500. People say we have a crystal ball, but it is simply just based off market cipher B, volume profiles, and I guess the other, the other 10 techniques that we use. But, of course, guys, this weekly money flow crossover, when we started seeing this start to look like it wanted to cross over, this candle wound up printing about, January 19th. You know, as we see this money flow looking to cross over, we obviously compared this to 2021. And this is always a bunch of things that we looked at, right? Not only the money flow crossover, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but of course we were below the 50-week moving average. We also understood and looked at this even before the breakdown, right? You're below the 50-week moving average, timing of the cycle, bearish divergences, massive bearish technical signals. Once you break down, 100-week is your last level to hold. We wind up coming up for the 50-week retracement, and then you lose that 100-week with the money flow crossing over into the red. You end up getting that bigger drop to the downside. Even back here in 2017, same song and dance here, guys. Lose the 50-week, timing of the cycle, bearish retest, lose the 100-week, money flow in the red on the weekly, dump to the downside. Same thing here in 2014, like literally break down below, 100-week, 100-week, 100-week. We lose it, money flow crosses over. Everything was in line here for some kind of a bigger capitulation. I wouldn't necessarily call this a capitulation, at least yet, but looking for that next big dump to the downside. When we look for this stuff, guys, there are always reasons for it. It's never just random, and all the signs were here on the chart. We've been talking about it since $108,000. Of course, still holding the short positions, continuing to pay out. But at this point, guys, you know, we barely front ran this low here from April, like literally by dollars, right? Like barely front running this by a few bucks here. And very similarly to the last low we wanted to see taken out at 80,500. We front ran that very slightly. Of course, we get a bounce. I preferred to see that level taken out, and of course, we just melted right through it. And why were we interested in this level, guys? It had everything to do with, and there's the 100-week moving average getting lost again, in line with that 50, in line with that weekly money flow crossover. Like literally could not. We always say history oftentimes rhymes. It doesn't always repeat, but it oftentimes rhymes, right? But in this case, guys, like, when we pull this fractal from 2021, it is horrifyingly similar, right? We've done this like a million times. I do this like every day on the channel, and it did look like we were somewhere right in here before the big breakdown on the loss of the 100-week with that money flow crossover, and like oftentimes rhymes, right? Doesn't always repeat, but in this case, it is literally repeating perfectly. Now, am I expecting the exact same thing to happen? It doesn't mean that I'm expecting this exact same price action to play out. Not necessarily, of course, but it really is just crazy. You cannot ignore this fractal, and it wasn't just that. Of course, it's all the massive signals, the weekly money flow, the moving averages. Everything was kind of in store here, or I should say in line. But as we get this drop to the downside, right, we had some major key levels that we were looking at. And, before we bring up the ranges, I just want to bring up all those horizontal levels that we were looking at. We had nothing, right? We looked at the 786 last week, and, we're talking about how, hey, if we do end up getting another drop to the downside, really our support was here on the value area low. We had some MPOCs. We had a cluster of confluence in here, but once we came down to that 786, once we lose this range, essentially, there is no confluence underneath us, right? Which is why I was not interested and did not take any longs at the 786. And then we also had a daily naked point of control, which, of course, this folder just keeps on moving on me. There it is. I don't know why this keeps moving. And I can't, look at this. I can't drag it. That's so interesting. But we did have a daily MPOC sitting here, which we did end up getting a bounce off of. But at that point, guys, we even looked at this before we came down here. Am I interested in that daily naked point of control? It was sitting at around like $82,000. Not really, right? Because we don't have a lot of confluence. You want to find those high confluence areas, those clusters of support and resistance for high probability reactions. And we'll get to these levels in a second. But we sat out of all the longs here in the premium. I just was not interested. No confluence, no great confirmation. And we, of course, we're front running this major low, which was very likely to get taken out. And eventually we do end up seeing that happen. In the next major levels of support, we're very simply sitting right here. We had the daily, the weekly MPOC, and we also had another daily down here. We also had a weekly in there. So when we look at the chart, take the ranges off, right? You know, you have all your resistance above you. There was nothing sitting down here. I'll even hide this so it's not confusing, right? Nothing down here. The next high probability area for price to go was going to be down here below 80,500. The first cluster of confluence sits between about 79.5 to 78,550. And then you also had that daily down here at about 76,000. 76K, right? 76.1, 76K. Now, and where are we sitting, right? We're sitting right on this level just to show that, like, these levels are very likely to get tapped. These lows are very likely to get taken out. And, of course, with the confluence on the weekly money flow, not super shocking here. But the question is, are we going to hold this support? Is the pain over at least short term? And it's long term, guys. My sentiment does still remain the same for potential lower highs and lower lows to come. Even if we're able to hold this level of support, I will still be looking for lower highs and lower lows, eventually targeting our next major level of support down here between $70,000 and $59,000. And of course, why is that, right? Well, the same reason we were not interested in this area for any longs, looking for this area to get hit. It's very similar underneath us. Even if we pull up the visible range volume profile, we look at this from a volume perspective, not a whole lot of volume underneath us. Once we lose this low, very likely to fall through that gap. And where are we likely to get at least some kind of reaction like we're getting right now? Well, we're probably not going to spend a lot of time in the gap, and we're probably coming down here to all of this confluence. Now, when we pull up, I'll even take off these levels so it's not super confusing. But when we pull up our lower volume profile here, value area high 70,000, POC sitting at 67.5. This is the next major level of support, right? I will be interested in potential fake outs of this low for a retracement. However, if we cannot hold that, the next big targets down here are going to be 70 to 67.5, the same levels we've been talking about forever. We're just, getting closer and closer, right? So we got to bring up these levels once again, remind the Mafia where that support is. And again, just looking at it from a volume perspective, massive volume gap. Price likes to stick to the high volume nodes. And then once you start breaking into the low volume nodes, it doesn't like to spend a lot of time here. And this is the same thing, the same technique that we use on XRP, which, by the way, has hit its exact target that we looked at here at $1.53. We even marked out this gap on last week's live stream. This was the last level to hold. Once we ended up losing this level and getting accepted into the gap, very likely fast move through that low volume gap into your next major key level, which was also a value area high of the previous range, sitting at $1.53. So we'll come back to this in just a minute. But this is just how you can predict, like, hey, if we can't get out of this gap, guys, very fast move down is likely into your next key level of support. Where are we, technically getting some support? I'm not saying this is the bottom or anything like that, but, where are we getting a little bit of turbulence? Right on that key level, all based off the volume profiles. I love the volume profiles because they're not just magical lines on the chart. They are actually based off of volume. So whether I kind of want to talk today about, can we get the retracement? What do we need to see for a retracement? And if we do, if we're looking for lower highs and lower lows, where are those big levels of resistance? You can kind of get an idea of generally where those are sitting right now with the horizontal levels on the chart. But at the end of the day, guys, regardless of what happens here, if we get a move down, this is the next big target to look at. We will be interested in maybe some short-term long positions, but with our weekly money flow still in the red here, right, just starting to cross over, the key level that we don't want to lose, right, which, I think there's probably a pretty good chance that we eventually lose it, but $67,500 sitting at the point of control of the range here. And just simple volume profile perspective, maybe we get support on the value area high, but if we end up losing this POC, that's where we're going to be looking for the full rotation of that volume profile down to about $59,000 to $60,000, right? Could we deviate below? Yes, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but just like we look at all of these volume profiles, whether it's on the 5-minute, the 10-minute, the 2-hour, the weekly, it does not matter. Even here on the 80K range that we were looking at last week, right? Get accepted into the range. Next stop is the POC. Can't hold the POC. Value area low is next. It's going to be the same thing there on those high time frame volume profiles. It is simple auction market theory. Price likes to seek out fair value. This is the magnet, right? This is the magnet. This is like the opposite, right? We just fly through these levels. Price likes to stick to the high volume nodes. So if we get down there, massive support, right? If we lose the POC, we're looking down to the value area low. Very plain and simple there. And then once we get down here, guys, we'll start to talk. Hopefully, I pray, if we get down there, we could start to talk about maybe some macro bottoms coming in, whether it's for a massive retracement. We'll see if we have to call for lower prices again. But we'll talk about some potential macro bottoms coming in. Like, this is the next major macro levels. Call it 60K at the value area low, 70K at the value area high, and the biggest level we have to hold is 67.5. We lose that. That's the line in the sand. That's where I think 60K is very likely. And mark these levels off on your chart, because whether we come up first or we just melt down from where we are, this is the biggest zone to look at. We've compared this to MicroStrategy as we pull up. We've pulled up this chart. Whoops, that is not what I wanted to do. Oh, God. Hang on one second here, guys. No. Oh, God. Bring me back. Bring me back. Okay. Give me one sec here, guys. I don't know how to get out of that. I know everything about TradingView except for that, I guess. But this is obviously going to be the biggest level to look at on the chart. And when we bring up MicroStrategy, right, we've done this a bunch of times. Someone actually asked me to look at it live on stream, and we kind of made these did this live, right? Because it wasn't something I was paying a super big amount of attention to. But if we take a look at MicroStrategy, you could see, right, MicroStrategy had lost its upper profile, very similar to Bitcoin. There's the upper profile. There's the upper profile. We eventually got the breakdown. MicroStrategy seeks out its previous value area. This is Bitcoin's previous value area. It's part of the reason why we were looking for Bitcoin to kind of follow suit there on MicroStrategy, eventually hunting out that lower value. Very, very plausible here. And of course, right, like, it does end up playing out. And we've compared this to 2021, where MicroStrategy ends up putting in the lower high, indicating the top potentially being in, right? Bitcoin puts in the higher high to put in those weekly bearish divergences. It was the same exact thing in 2021. We get the lower high. It was actually a lower high on, a local fib, but we get the lower high into our Fibonacci retracement levels, right? And then what does Bitcoin do at the same exact time? You can see my cursor here. It puts in the higher high for the bearish divergences, literally a one-to-one replica of what has happened in the past. So just like another evidence piece that we were looking at, making us suspicious about Bitcoin following suit there. But when we look locally here, I kind of want to cover the local price action with you guys. Can we bounce here? Of course. I don't want to get everybody like super scared at support. Obviously, when we look at the horizontal levels we looked at last week, we had the weekly MPOC, the dailies, meaning the daily horizontals. This is obviously a key level of support, so not surprising to see a little bit of a hang up here. And when we look at, I will say, one of the bullish signs we could see right now, bullish is relative. One of the bullish signs for a potential bigger retracement up could be this 12-hour green dot and the 16-hour green dot, which is confirmed. 12-hour green dot, I believe, is still printing. We do have a market cipher B1/16 setup that could be indicating a bounce. 12-hour green dot, 45-minute money flow, attempting to cross over into the green. You can see we crossed green here, came back into the red. If we can continue this money flow up into the green here, if this could end up being a higher low on money flow for a continuation of that trend into a bigger green wave, that could indicate a bigger retracement to come. Now, obviously, our daily money flow is now crossing over into the red, which means even if we get that 45-minute money flow crossover and we do get a continuation up, we have to be careful of lower highs and lower lows. Not even mentioning the weekly, right? But the daily is now crossing into the red. This makes me oftentimes look for lackluster retracements, lower highs, lower lows. And I'm going to cover those key levels I'll be looking at for the potential rejections to come in. There's like two really big zones. But, and even here, guys, you want to talk about history repeating. I covered this on last week's live streams. This was the only thing, as we were bouncing around in these levels, that could have kept you having some kind of hope to continue a break above these highs. And we looked at this, but we also talked about how this was by itself, right? Money flow in the green. Technically, you could look for lower, higher lows and higher highs. However, our 16-hour money flow was potentially warning that that daily would bleed out. That 12-hour money flow also potentially warning that that money flow would bleed out on the daily. And we even compared it to the 2021 price action when you're in a bear market scenario, which we have obviously assumed here for a very long time. Money flow likes to spend more time in the red than it does in the green, right? And we covered it right here, literally the same exact price action. Money flow goes green. Technically, you continue the trend up, but it does not spend a lot of time here, rolls back over into a big red wave. So again, in bear markets, money flow is going to spend a lot less time in the green than it does in the red. And then we bring that over to our current price action, almost the exact same thing. We're coming down, money flows in the green. Could indicate a higher low and higher high, but of course, we did not spend a lot of time there, and we end up getting the bleed to the downside. Now, I would say the biggest level right now to look at, in my opinion, is going to be about $80,500. Now, we have the $80,000 psychological level, but then we have this low here at $80,500. This is the biggest level, in my opinion, to reclaim in order to maybe see a bigger retracement to the upside. And again, I'm going to cover these key levels in a second of where I'll be looking for rejections. But if we're able to get back above that $80,500 low, that's where we could potentially look for some kind of a bigger retracement to come in. But with the higher time frame bias, like even looking at the 16-hour, right? It's like, or the 12-hour rather. This could indicate a bounce, right? We're at support. We have the green dot. But when money flow always indicates the overall trend, right? Money flow is coming out. You're looking for lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. But those green dots can give you little bounces, right? You get a green dot here, little bounce. Green dot here, little bounce. But are these bounces looked at as massive highs? Not necessarily, right? Because the money flow is going to indicate whether you should be looking to long this to the moon or whether you should be waiting for the retracements to come up into your Fibonacci retracements and then look for to short that thing back down. And of course, we have the short setup here, and still holding the short from 98K and from $91,000. We had the setup here. I did not personally take it because I was already in massive shorts. So right now, I would say this looks a lot more like we would look for a lackluster bounce for an eventual lower high and lower low. So hopefully we could get some relief in here. I mean, you're at support. Again, this is not where I would look for a fresh short as you're pushing into the level, right? You're hitting support. You don't want to short at support. You want to wait for the retracements, short at resistance, short at resistance, short at resistance, right? That's just how I trade. A lot of people say, how could you, why would you want to short on green candles? Well, if you short on the red candles, there's a high chance that you're probably too late to the move, right? At this point, it's like if I were looking for a short here, it's like, well, I've already missed a big move down, right? I need to wait for some kind of significant retracement. So now the question remains, where are we looking for those rejections? I'm going to go over that right now. But let me come on into the chat here real quick. Let's see. CME gap at 83K could get tapped. Then come to PAP. Shout out to Bitcoin Henry. Yeah, well, it's not far off of the level that I'm looking at. So we'll take we'll keep that in mind. CME gap at 83K. We'll be at 48K before we know it. Shout out to Panda Profit. One thing I will bring up here, guys, is, of course, we have massive, big levels down here, right? I think in the best case scenario, if we see this continue, right, which does look likely based off the charts, this is the first level that I'll be interested in looking for major bottoms, right? If we end up, right, I'll even show I've shown this before, but I'll show like the major key level. I know a lot of people are wondering, like how bad could this get, right? Like, are we going to be looking for the traditional 70 to 80% correction that we've seen in bear markets in the past? For example, last cycle, I believe was 77%. If we go down 77% from the high, right? That would bring us all the way down to about $28,000. Am I anticipating this? Not necessarily as my base case, but one thing I will say, if we can't hold that the levels that I brought up before here between 70 and 59K, I will very quickly be looking at this 2021 volume profile. Major support would be sitting right here. If we do not want to see, I wouldn't even really be looking at 28, maybe closer to 30K. Is really where I'd be looking. I kind of just randomly pulled this profile, but around like $31,000 is kind of where I would be expecting. But it's just simple volume profile rotations, right? We can't hold this range. We impulse down. Probably going to get stuck in your next area of value, which 100% sits here between 70 and 59K. If we lose this level, major zone underneath you between 54, call it 55, down to the POC at 47K. I could see a scenario. We've covered kind of the best case scenario and the worst case scenario, right? Best case, we kind of bing bong around here. Maybe we deviate below the low. we can hold support on, kind of the previous all-time high, maybe retest the all-time high, slip below it. We've seen this happen in the past in 2021, right? The all-time high was about 20K, right? We get down, we bounce, we slip below it, we reclaim, send it. Could be a kind of a similar scenario there where we kind of test the all-time high, slip it, and then come back up. This would be like best case scenario for some kind of like a muted bear market situation that we've talked about before. This would be best case scenario. If you want to look for the traditional 4-year cycle, 70 to 80% correction, I would say this level here at $47,376 is the level that would decide whether you are going to see the less painful bear market, which would only be a drop of, let's just say we go down to the value area high, 56%, which to be honest, if that's even like 62%, 47K, if that's the bottom of the bear market, guys, piece of cake bear market, honestly. This is much better than what we've seen in the past. But if we do wind up losing 47,000, call it 47,000, like $376, once we get accepted below that POC, I would view this as a volume profile and say, well, hey, if we lose that point of control, the next likely place for price to go, just like we look at on the 5-minute, 10-minute, 20-minute, whatever we're looking at, right? Whether it's a local profile, a macro profile, it's the same techniques. Lose the POC, next likely place for price to go is going to be that value area low, which sits at about $30,500. And then that would also give you that kind of traditional 4-year cycle, 76, 75% drop, which would also hold true to the diminished losses and diminished returns that we see throughout the cycles as Bitcoin matures, right? As the market cap gets higher, the pumps and the dumps get a little bit less explosive in both directions. Like obviously in the first cycle, it was like 55,000% to the upside. Second cycle was less than that. Third cycle was less than that. This cycle was less than the previous. So you kind of see that, right? And even the bear market drops have gotten less and less severe. So, first big levels to look at right here. We start losing that 55 to 47K, lose 47. That's where I would look for that traditional 4-year cycle to play out. But I am open to potentially see something slightly different play out here. It's not my base case. It's not this time is different for no reason. If we get down here and the charts look super bearish, I will say this is the lower probability scenario, and we are going to be looking down probably for the traditional drop, right? But I don't want to use that as our base case. We want to play it level by level, right? So there you go. Now, when we talk about a potential bigger retracement coming in here locally, hey, Mrs. Candle's in the chat, and she's gone, and she's back. And she's gone. And she's back. Oh, Mrs. Candles doesn't feel good. I just had 105 fever, Mrs. Candles. Please do not get me sick again. And hopefully you don't have 105 fever. She's gone. I don't even think she can hear me anymore. Shout out to Mrs. Candles. But I would say this. 80,500. If we can reclaim this level decisively, this is where we could see a potentially bigger retracement come in, and where are going to be those major levels of resistance to look at if we can get that bounce to the upside. Remember the general thought process here: money flow in the red, lackluster pump, lower highs, lower lows. The biggest levels I'll be looking at, we're just going to simply pull up our range here, guys. Value area low sitting at about $86,154. And then, of course, we're going to pull our Fibonacci retracements from the high to the low. You can see we have a golden pocket 786 in here. So this would be a very, very, very important level of resistance that I will be paying attention to if we do get that bigger rip to the upside. This is going to be the first major level of resistance. Why? Golden pocket 786. Now, it's not the full retracement level, but of course, there's no guarantee that you're going to go up for that full retracement. This is the first major one pulled from the lower high all the way to the current low. So if we are able to just scoot up here, flip that $80,500 level to support and push into this resistance, this would be the first area where I would be interested in looking for rejections for a potential lower high and a potential lower low. The same thing we looked for at all of those other levels that we had shorts in the premium Discord. Same techniques are used there, right? Just a little bit of a different context. When we look for the short here at $91,000, what do we look at, right? We pull our fib from the retest, lower high, to the low. Golden pocket retracement, that's your big level to look for a lower high before a lower low. We also front ran the value area low, adding a little bit of confluence there. We take the short, it pays out, and I'm still holding this position to all the way down here. But same thing here, right? If we're looking for a bounce, a lower high, and another lower low to come in, what are we going to look at? Golden pocket, from the high to the low, golden pocket 786. Where's the lower high come in before the lower low? Right in that zone. So it's the same exact kind of situation, but we are just looking. So you kind of want to understand the environment that you're in. Pull your fib. There's your golden pocket 786. It's also confluent with your value area low. That's the major zone of resistance, sitting between 87,614 and 84,761. Now, if we pull up some of these horizontal levels, there's no dailies in there. There's no weeklies in there. There's no new monthly at this point. You have a weekly MPOC just above that 786. No monthly MPOC. So not a ton of horizontal confluence, but again, if you're looking for a bearish retest, right, it would make a lot of sense. Flip 80,500, could open the door to the value area low test, and then that would be where you're looking for the first place for the projection. If we get above the value area low and flip the 786, we're simply going to be looking up towards that point of control, which does have, actually another thing I want to bring up in here is the liquidation heat map, right? If we pull up this liquidation heat map real quick, you guys can see liquidity sitting at about 83,539 all the way up to about 85K almost. I forgot who said it. Somebody said we have the CME gap sitting at $83,000. So liquidity sitting up in here as well. So if we do come on up, sweep the liquidity right into the resistance, lose it. Very, very big level of resistance to look at in my personal opinion. That's what I'm going to be watching. And again, if we break that 786, I'll be looking up towards that point of control of the range. We could take a look at the heat map here. And POC sits at, let me pull this up on a higher time frame. Let's take a look at the 2-week. Trying to see if we have any liquidity sitting above about $91,000, or at least visible liquidity, right? There's probably liquidity sitting up there, but is it visible? There it is, right? Where's the hot spot of liquidity on this chart? I'd say it's right here. Where is that above? Right above $91,000, right? So if we come up, flip 80,500, first level of resistance. If we do not get the confirmations there, or even if we do and we get stopped out, flip the 786. This POC, liquidity does act as a magnet for price, but it could also offer you a potential fake out trade with your value area high just above you. And if we pull our full Fibonacci retracement, of course, technically the zone would sit between the golden pocket and 786, but I will just say I wouldn't be as interested in this golden pocket because you're kind of shorting in the middle of the range. You could flip the value area low to support. I'm just going to say this. I would really prefer to come up and take that. If you're expecting to come up and take that liquidity, this golden pocket is kind of a risky place to short, in my opinion. Not that it couldn't play out, 0% chance, but, I'm kind of waiting for that POC of the magnetic level of that POC kind of sucking you up. You have the liquidity adding to that magnetism. And then once you wind up coming up there, you might be able to sweep out that liquidity into your next major level of resistance. So I would say these are the two biggest levels to be looking at for rejections. And honestly, once you get into this volume profile, it's just hold the low, flip the 786, POC is likely next. Depending on, I don't know, you might get the sweep right into the high. But, if you get above the POC, the value area high is next. You have confluence up here, not only on your 786 value area high, but you also have your weekly level up there. You have a weekly MPOC, not super confluent, but, you have a lot of resistance up here is pretty much the point there. You have a daily up there, not really confluent, but there's a decent amount of confluence up here in my own personal opinion. So these are the two biggest zones. I'll just give them to you so you can put them on your chart just to look out for those rejections. Zone number one, once more, 84,761 to 87,614. Technically 88K, you have a weekly MPOC, but, kind of the same zone. And then that second zone would be the POC value area high, sitting between $91,000 and $93,513. And when you start to think, right, that the CME gap is in, 93K, you have liquidity above, might want to go, fill that CME gap, sweep out the liquidity, and again, major level of resistance. If it doesn't come in there, next place I'm looking is right here, keeping it nice and simple. And once we get above here, you just view this as a volume profile. And even if we get a move up here, right, this is the full golden pocket or full 786 retracement. This would be the first place to look for a lower high. If we get up in here, could still be a lower high before a lower low, right? So context-wise, Fibonacci-wise, volume profile-wise, confluence-wise, definitely going to be a big area to watch, right? And, of course, with our higher time frame money flow still coming into the red, that's what gives us kind of the base case of looking even entertaining the idea of lower highs and lower lows, right? If I had this big red money flow wave crossing into the green, I would expect a massive 16-hour trend to the upside. But in this case, I would have to look at this, at least as of right now. It's not that you can't get a bigger move up. It's not that it's impossible, but I would definitely view that through money flow on the higher time frames. I would definitely have to view that as a lower high to come in, maybe squeeze out some of the shorts, right? We have the liquidity up here, squeeze them out, right? If we can continue in, squeeze out some of these shorts. And then obviously, $95,200, start flipping that level. Maybe we could look for new highs. But of course, with the daily money flow, 16-hour money flow, 12-hour money flow all coming out, that would not be the base case. We'd have to kind of assess that as price action comes up. But until then, I'd be very careful of lower highs and lower lows. So very simply, that is what I'm going to be looking for. And that's, of course, if we don't come down and take the low first. I prefer, right? Of course, we can look for the reclaim to indicate that we can get the bigger move up. But as always, I would really like to see, we got so close to that $74,300 low. I would prefer that to get taken personally. Let's see. Shout out to Sandra. Thank you for the super chat. Says, sending hugs to Mrs. Candles for feeling ill from the UK. Shout out to Mrs. Candles. I don't think she can hear me, but I'll pass on the word for you, Sandra. Shout out to you. Let's see. Shout out to OCB. Thank you for the super chat. Says, what's up, Frankie? Hope you had a good weekend, bro. Hype looks to be a potential double top situation. What's your view on a short from $26 from here? Shout out to OCB. We're going to take a look at the altcoins in just a second. Bitcoin has never had 2 down years in a row. Fun fact. Shout out to FlatSmack. It's not his username anymore, but I know that profile picture. Shout out to FlatSmack. I think that's FlatSmack. Interesting. Very interesting. The market teased us not taking the low. Yeah, shout out to Brillo. I was obviously interested in taking the low at 74,300, but again, I would say it's not 100% of the time, but same thing here, right? It teases the low more often than not. From a probability standpoint, I just always expect that low to eventually get taken. Doesn't mean it's going to happen every time. We've seen the lows front ran before, but this is a perfect case of when we're talking about this live, it's like we talk about how could this just could we front run the low and send it up to a new high? Technically, the daily money flows in the green, but I still prefer that move down. Not just for the front run. One of the major reasons is because you just barely front run that low. And we covered this before we even got the drop down because technically we had the daily naked point of control at like $82,000, right? So you were hitting support. You were getting the bounce, but it's like there's no confluence on that level and you front ran the low, which I don't really love. This is all for the retracements up, right? If we get the bigger retracement, you're just looking for like a sign of strength, right? It's like a reclaim of your key level here. It's also a psychological level. And then just simply pulling your significant Fibonacci retracements from the lower high. If it doesn't come in there, you just look for the full fib from the actual high. And then when you see that is in confluence with other key levels, right, that gives you a high probability of a reaction. Not a guaranteed reaction, but a high probability of a reaction. And when we pair these with the volume profiles, it just gives us a nice perspective, right? Because it's like, well, hey, if we break above that 786, we're back in the range. What's next after that? Very likely POC. Flip the POC, go to the value area high. Right? It wouldn't be until we broke out of here where I'd be looking for a new high to come in. Is that impossible? No. But money flow lets us know it's the lower probability scenario, right? Just like it was at 82K, just like it was here, just like it was here, right? So, I don't know. We've been pretty, I feel like we're kind of due for things not to play out perfectly, especially after seeing the 2021 price action play out exactly like this, right? I don't know. I feel like things have been like a little too suspiciously clean. It's like I feel like we might be due for a fake out. Of course, not going to make decisions off of that, but Flat Smack the likes. Shout out to Flat Smack. It is Flat Smack. I knew it. I don't know what's up with YouTube and these usernames. But yeah, I do want to take a look at the altcoins with you guys as well, because obviously, guys, as we looked at last week, I almost said Bitcoin, XRP testing this very, very key daily level. Once we lose this, right? Actually, I think on Friday we were actually entering into this low volume gap. Super big warning sign. I wish I had screenshots. I was going to try to take some screenshots just to kind of show you guys what we look for. But literally on the Friday's live stream, like if he can't get out of this range, right, or this, low volume gap, you get accepted into this low volume gap, very high probability of getting the quick move down. And where do we look for the bounce? Value area high of the range. It's like almost 1-to-1, the exact same thing that you would pay attention to on Bitcoin when you take a look at the VPVR, right? Same thing there would be there's your low volume gap. You lose the lows. Where's the low volume gap end? Pretty much at about $70,000, which is also confluent with your previous value area high of this range, right? This is like almost 1-to-1, exactly the same thing as XRP. Now, of course, doesn't mean you have to get accepted into this low volume gap. Like we haven't really taken the low yet. But again, right, when you just look at this, you got nothing, nothing but air underneath you, right? So you got to be careful. Sometimes this can be like, we've even talked about this, like this area was a clean place to see some kind of a bigger drop come in, not just from a TA perspective, but just from like a volume perspective. Like can't get out of this low volume gap, probably going to be a quick move down to the value area high. XRP, pretty much the same exact thing. Now this was a zone, but if we pull up a higher time frame, we still have the drawing of the low volume gap here. But if you pull up the visible range, pull up the VPVR, pull it up on like a daily time frame here. Come on, volume. Big old volume gap, right? Price likes to stick to the high volume nodes. Once you lose them, get accepted into the gap, fast move down. Where do you go down to? Previous range value area high, right? And this is a little bit of a zone. Technically, the value area high is at about $1.39, $1.40. But of course, we mark these out as zones because you're never going to get, price is always going to be, or support and resistance is always going to, I like to look at them as zones because very rarely, or, a lot of times you'll fake out the level. You're going to think like, oh my God, we're losing the level, right? But it is a zone. So if we lose this level, right, next level I'd be looking down to for XRP is going to be about $1.40. Once we get accepted there, yikes, right? Like not a lot underneath us here, right? POC, like huge volume fall off. POC sits at about 83 cents. I would not like to see that happen. Again, this is support. You could get retracements just like on Bitcoin. Where would we look? Same exact places. Value area low, Fibonacci retracements, which have now moved technically. Your full Fibonacci retracement now sits in confluence with your value area low. So I would say for, XRP, if you did get a big bounce here, I don't know if I would even expect to come up here, but this does sit between about, call it $1.99 and about $2.10. This would be a big area to look for a potential another lower high and a lower low. Now, of course, you could pull your local fibs as well. You could pull from this lower high. This is actually a little cleaner. Gives you a little bit more room in case you don't get the full retracement. So I would say $1.92 to about $2.06 is the biggest level to look at. And then, of course, is it impossible to reject your local fibs? Not really. You could pull from your lower high to your low, which doesn't really give you, can't get out of the gap. Retest the range low. So I don't want to pull every single Fibonacci retracement, but like this would be the big level, right? This has been the big level. You got to get back inside this profile for a bigger move up. Until then, right, like again, looking at your weekly money flow, why do we anticipate this to be the higher probability scenario? Money flow crossing red on the weekly. Lower highs and lower lows are more likely. So it's going to remain the same thing. If we get a bounce, lower highs and lower lows could be that higher probability scenario. So mark off $1.40, mark off $1.92 to $2.06. Those are the biggest levels, and we'll keep that low volume gap even though it's already filled, right? Like literally perfect. Can't get out of the low volume gap. Fast move down exactly as we looked at. Not to brag, but just to show how powerful these volume profiles can be. Let's see. Shout out to JP says, Frankie, do you have a video about your different fib levels? Yes, I do have a Fibonacci video in the beginner series. If you're new here, go check out the beginner series. It's like a A to Z, like super beginner kind of free course for you to go through so you kind of know exactly what we're looking at here. Not only do I show you the key levels that we look at, which are very simple. These are not like uncommon levels. Golden Pocket 786 is what I like to look at. Of course, there's other popular levels. I don't use them as often, but you have like obviously Golden Pocket 786. You have the 382. A lot of people look at the 702, which is kind of in between the 786 and the Golden Pocket. Actually, just out of curiosity, Let's see if this 702 lands on that value area low. That would be kind of crazy. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but look at that. Directly on the value area low. I had a feeling that was going to happen. But yeah, these are the main two levels that I like to look at. I find those to be the highest probability to look for the lower highs or the higher lows, depending on the trend. But yeah, go check that out. I also show you how I trade the Fibonacci retracements as well. My man, thanks, brother. Shout out to JP. Yeah, we talk about the volume profiles. The beginner series has absolutely everything. Shout out to Tony D for dropping the link there in the Discord. I'm in the Discord, in the chat. I'm losing my mind, guys. Shout out to Pyro Zeus said, did anybody benefit on the dump? Who made money from the shorts? Shout out to you, brother. Mafia making money. We had a awesome premium live stream. Everybody's super excited about the wins that they were seeing on the short positions. Obviously, I'm still holding portions of my shorts here. Still got 7,200 unrealized from the $98,000 short over on WeX. And then I also still have the below fin short open up about $8,500 from $90,600. And profits locked in, ready to go on these shorts. So super happy about that. And shout out to the Discord. A lot of people were making money on the shorts. They were super, super excited. We pulled up, they asked me to pull up the winning trades, and shout out to Indian Martini making a ton of progress on his Warbucks funded account here. Absolutely crushing it. Average winning trade P&L $5,000. Insane. His win rate was like 93%. And yeah, people just absolutely crushing it. So yeah, Mafia is making money on these shorts, and that's the beauty of being a trader, guys. You know, if you're afraid of the bear market being here, if you're afraid of not being able to make money in crypto as price goes down, hopefully this is proof that you can absolutely make money as price goes down. Obviously not short on XRP, but short on Bitcoin here personally. You don't need the bull markets, right? This is just flip the chart upside down. If you can bet on the price going down, just like you could bet on the price going up in a bull market, the bear markets are just another bull market. It's volatility. Volatility is volatility. This is just volatility to the downside. And if you can learn how to make money as price comes down, there's money to be made on both sides. Of course, bull markets are better because you could long and hold spot bags. But of course, if you could kind of time this stuff like we do here, you can make money on the spot. We can fire those warning shots. Never financial advice, of course, but fire those warning shots at around $108,000, saying looking like the top may be in here. I took a lot of profits here at 108K, and then flipping short. We shorted 120. Had a setup at 126K. I personally went short, I think, 124K. So we caught nice short positions on the way down, and then, of course, catching those next little lower highs for the next big drop down. So always money to be made in the market, guys, as long as the price keeps going up and down. Doesn't always have to go up. So shout out to the premium Discord. We were having a lot of fun in there. A lot of people were super excited. But if you guys are interested in checking out the premium, you guys can check out in the free Discord. We do have the dining room section. This is like a free trial, except it's like unlimited. We don't kick you out. But if you use any of our affiliate links, you can come on in here to unlock access, and you will get access to some of the one post per week. A lot of times it's a setup. Sometimes it's just TA. But a lot of times they are setups, and this was the short setup from $91,000. So shout out to the dining room, got that set up as well. Sometimes it winds up being like the really nice trade of the, not only week, but like maybe the month. So shout out to that. You can come get access to this in the premium, the free Discord, and then just come in to unlock access. Super simple, read through this. And then we have it for FEMEX, Blowfin, and MEXC. So if you use any of our affiliate links and you trade on there anyway, you're kind of sleeping on just not having free access. So there you go. Get a little bit of a taste of what we do there. It's not a signals group. I will not tell you when to buy. I'm not going to say, hey, buy now, sell now, right? Signals don't work in my opinion. And I'll just show you in this example here, right? We wait for the levels. I put in the post exactly what I want to see here, what I want to look for to take a short, so you can get my spoon-fed trade idea, the exact confirmations that I'm typically looking for. And then, we don't win every trade either, but more often than not, they do play out. And that was that 91.4 level. What is the percentage on that so far? Like right, I believe that was the setup from right here. Wound up being an 18% move, right? So obviously I have a lot of volatility. It's not always going to give you an 18% move, but not too shabby. And the Discord was very happy. So let's see. Rob the Crypto Snob in the chat. Welcome in, brother. Welcome in. Good to see you, Rob. Hope you're doing well. Happy birthday, by the way, bro. As you guys know, Rob has a birthday 365 days of the year, so birthday cakes in the chat for Rob. Shout out to Rudy, said hit the like button or the stream ends. Then it will be your fault. Shout out to Rudy. Don't forget to smash the likes, guys. But let's see. All right, so we took a look at XRP. Let's jump into Ethereum real quick here, guys. Of course, Ethereum also, as we looked at this, once we lose the value area low of the range, biggest level to look, or next major high probability target. If we lost this range, where do we want to look down to? We wanted to look down to this previous value area high, 2674. Of course, just based off the theory of auction market theory. We had this kind of local volume profile that we had created back here in May of last year. And of course, if you can't hold on to, and I could even try to hide this for you a little bit just to hide the local range, or I'm sorry, I didn't want to hide the local range. I wanted to hide the big range, right? If you lose this volume profile, balanced price, imbalance, right? When you come out of balance and you get imbalance, price likes to seek out the next area of fair value. Now, although we did kind of nuke through this level, if you come on down to a lower time frame, you can see we lose the upper range. Next place for price to go, value area high of the range. Technically, this is support until proven otherwise. We bounce. We get accepted in. Once you get accepted into the range, next likely place for price to go is the POC. You could even see a low time frame reaction off that point of control. Once you lose that, you're looking to go down to the value area low. We nuked right through it, dipped. We bearishly retested it. So that's just kind of the context that we're in right now. I would say personally for me, this would be the upper range to watch. If we are able to get some kind of a push up on Ethereum, flip this value area low at about 24.55. This would open the door into the point of control at 25.32. Flip the POC. We can look to come into that value area high at 26.72. And if we were to look at, again, kind of just looking at the idea of course, price, when it remains balanced, it is nice to look for longs at the lows and deviations below back to the POC. You didn't even get the full rotation here, but still got the first target of the point of control hit. Deviation below the low, get back into the range. POC, value area high. Barely got front ran there, but almost a fulfill of the profile. You come back down, deviate above the high, back in. POC, value area low. Deviation below, back in. POC, flip the POC, value area high. But people oftentimes ask me, I get the volume profiles. We're short in the overvalued price. We're long in the undervalued price. We're short in the overvalued price. Why is this one a little bit different? Frankie, I know price, this is beautiful for the ranges, but how do I know if this is going to break down? This is where we incorporate money flow. And depending on the size of the range and the time frames that you're looking at, you could see here, money flow was crossing into the red. Would I anticipate a strong hold of this range for a massive rotation back up to the high? Not necessarily, right? If money flow is going to indicate the overall trend, in this case, on the 4-hour time frame, what would I be looking for here? Sure, you deviate below the low, you get back in. You could look for the POC. We barely front ran it, but money flow is in the red. You are looking for lower highs and lower lows. This is a case where you may not have the highest probability of getting a fulfill the volume profile, very clearly identified by money flow, right? On the 4-hour, and even when you look at time frames like the daily, as you come down here, what is your money flow doing? It is trending to the downside. Lower highs, right? It's all about trend when it comes to money flow. Trending out, lower highs are likely. Typically, they come in at the golden pocket 786. Technically, you didn't hit this one. You kind of front ran it. Of course, it's never going to be perfect. I bet if you pull this on log, you may have hit it. No, you still front ran it, right? So it's never going to be 100%, but probably. Not even really perfect. I won't even kind of bring that up. But, of course, looking for the lower highs and the lower lows in general. So now underneath you, we do have this front ran low at about 21,115. So again, are we going to get the reclaim and the retracement from here, or are we going to take that low? I always prefer to take out the major lows. I can't guarantee that's the case. Sometimes price likes to front run and move. Again, it's a higher probability, in my opinion, to take out the low, but it's never going to be 100%. It's never guaranteed. So what I would say is very similar to Bitcoin, reclaiming its, I guess this would be the level that 80,500 that we're looking at on Bitcoin structure-wise. But I would say the closest level that you would want to flip here, if you're not going to get another rip below the lows at 21,115, you're below the value area low. You want to flip that into support. That could open up the door into the POC. Flip the POC. Look to get a move into the high. right? Once you start breaking out of this volume profile, that's where you're starting to reclaim your major previous low. If you can imbalance back out, this is where we will start to look towards the value area low of our previous range. And we could pull our Fibonacci retracements, which I actually just had up there, right? We could pull from the swing high to the low. So I would say your biggest levels on Ethereum to look at as resistance locally would be the golden pocket value area high, 2673 to 2731. And then you have your new level here, 786, value area low, right? So if we're looking for lower highs and lower lows, I would say if we get the bigger retracement first, these are going to be big levels to look at. Now, of course, you could reject the hyperlocal levels. I'm not going to bring up every single level because it's just going to confuse people. Obviously, you have to take the time to learn and understand where to pull your fibs from. But essentially, could we maybe, all right, we're pushing into our local fib right now. Could the lower high come in here? Potentially, right? There's no guarantee you're going to get that bigger retracement. But I think this daily green dot is going to indicate whether we get a bigger push up or not. If we're going to get the big push, that green dot is the thing to look at. Once that green dot prints, we can go down to the 80 and 90-minute money flow. That's the market cipher B 1/16th bullish setup. Very simple strategy, also in the beginner series. If we can get that daily green dot and see this money flow continue up, same thing as Bitcoin, right? That money flow crossover into the green on the 80 and 90-minute at the same time as that daily green dot, if it decides to print, would indicate to me that we might be able to continue that uptrend, right? Into those major retracement levels. Does that change my higher time frame bias? No. This is an 80-minute money flow crossover, meaning the 80-minute trend is likely to continue down. 80-minute money flow crossover into the red, low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. If this crosses green, it would be looked at as an 80-minute higher low, lower high, higher low, higher high scenario, right? That does not change the fact that our daily money flow is crossing into the red, right? So that 80-minute trend might look something like this for an eventual money flow continuation into the red for lower highs and lower lows, right? 80-minute trend, daily trend. Does that make sense? Just to kind of show that daily money flow crosses red right here. Well, you kind of got a little fake out there. Of course, it's never going to be perfect. But you get your first money flow crossover into the red here. You could be entertaining the idea of lower highs and lower lows. You kind of squeak above the 786, but essentially eventually get the rejection. Lower low, right? Now money flow is in the red on the daily. Lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. Money flow starts coming back up. Low, high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. Money flows in the green, but now we're crossing back into the red, right? So again, high time frame anticipation would be on the higher time frames for lower highs and lower lows. Hopefully that makes sense. Those are the local levels. Watch that value area high. That's your first golden pocket retracement. If we just want to go back and retest the bottom of the range, it's also confluent with your 786. So this is a big zone to be looking at. Let me just check something here. Take a look at the weekly MPOCs real quick. Look at that weekly MPOC as well. You have a weekly MPOC on that golden pocket. So you do have extra confluence in there on your weekly MPOC. So 2667 up to about 2728. Big level to look at. Yo, shout out to Brillo. Said it didn't make any sense. Explain it again. JK. Shout out to Brillo. All right, so that was Ethereum. We took a look at XRP. Let's take a quick look at Solana. Pull up the daily here. So obviously, like again, very similar situation to Ethereum, XRP, right? Or more like Ethereum. Here's your local range. We end up losing the range. How could you know that? 4-hour money flow is coming out. Could be likely that you lose that volume profile. And, of course, daily money flow back in the red, another warning sign. Weekly money flow just starting to cross over into the red, right? You're using the high time frame money flow to identify the environment that you're trading in. This is a bearish environment, very likely to see lower highs and lower lows, high, low, or high, low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. This would still be my overall anticipation. And we have the daily and the weekly down here. Didn't even really get much support at all. We came down, we tapped it, we got a little bounce here, and then we just rolled back over, broke the level, and literally like almost no support at all on the weekly. We're just bearishly back testing it at this point. You know, daily money flow in the red, very similar situation. 2-day money flow still in the red. I mean, higher time frame sentiment pretty much remains the same. I would say the next big key level underneath you, let me go ahead and pull up the object tree here. Let me we might have to pull some new lower levels. Yeah, weekly MPOC. I mean, the general zone to reclaim, right? If you can get a pushback above this weekly MPOC, weekly and daily, right, that could indicate a back test of the range just like on Ethereum. Excuse me, just like on Ethereum. But if we end up breaking down here, guys, I'll be honest, like, if I were to hide all this, and just look at this from like a high time frame volume profile perspective, let's try to find a level down here. Pull this range maybe. Where does this sit? Got a little bit of balance here. Just trying to find another level underneath you and you can see, right, this level, this range, right, or this volume profile is pulled all the way back here from 2022. Value area high, POC, value area low. We come back up in here in 2023. It is beautifully respected and behaves just like you would want it to when looking at a volume profile. Come on. You get back in, you flip the low, POC is very likely next, value area high, fulfill the profile. You can't get out, you get accepted back in, big liquidation wick obviously kind of throws things off, but at the end of the day, you get the high, rejection in, bearish retest, almost down to the low, but eventually you front run it, can't get out, front run it, can't get out of the POC, can't get out of the POC, eventually you do come back down. It's like a magnet, it's like it's programmed into price, guys. There's the value area low. All right, you got a full rotation here technically, right? But if you're looking at the body closes, accepted in, below the POC, front run. Oh my God, we're not going to go to the value area low. Never mind, it was just a long journey. So this could be a valid profile to look at. I'll give this to you so you can get it on your charts for Solana. Just, whoops, come on. There we go. Start breaking down here. Can't get the bounce back out of this range. I mean, yeah, this is kind of the only other. Mrs. Candle shutting the studio door. She's sick of hearing this guy talk. Yeah, I mean, you're pretty much trying to hold on top of the POC value area high of this range. You have the confluence here on the daily and the weekly. Like, if you could hold this, that's your hope for a bigger retracement, right? And that's where you can start looking at your bigger Fibonacci retracements, which I will pull here, full fib from the high to the low. Also, confluent with the value area low of the range, right? You got to be careful of these range back tests. All right, so if you're going to see something like this, I mean, you really got to hold on top of this POC. Whoops. Value area high, right? You really got to hold on top of that POC. If you want the bigger retracement, you got to get up and out of these levels. And then I would look for a potential move, right? Not that you can't get lower highs locally, but if you're going to get a bigger retracement between about 126.69 and 130.29, that would be an area to potentially look for lower highs and lower lows. Now, you do have potential 3-day bullish divergences forming in there as well. No weekly bull div, but not all bullish divergences are created equal. Usually a 3-day bull div is a very bullish sign. Look at this 3-day bull div, right? Lower lows into basically the same level, right? We also created the levels we're tapping right now, but into the value area high POC of the range, lower lows, higher lows, Money flow still coming into the red there, which is interesting. Really interesting. And this money flow stayed in the red. I have to say, this is probably the first time I've ever seen the trend completely ignored by money flow. Obviously, it came up here for a little continuation. This is uncommon. But typically, if you have bullish divergences into a key level, really what you want to see for a big move up is you want to see your money flow coming into the green. When it's coming into the red, sure, the bull divs can indicate a bounce, which it might be here. But more often than not, terrible example, because this one had money flow coming into the red, and we just continued up anyway. Very rare case. I think that's like the only time I've ever seen that, or at least talked about it on the live stream. I pulled these examples 40 times a day. We'd never seen this. But different context as well, right? Like, obviously, Bitcoin in a macro bearish context, you got to be more careful here with money flow in the red. Maybe that bull day gives you the bounce, but money flow is always going to indicate the overall trend, right? Weekly money flow just starting to cross over into the red. You could even say there with the 3-day money flow coming out, like, technically your money flow is still in the green on the weekly. This is the big bearish sign here, high time frame. So we get the bounce, could get the bigger retracement, but I would still have to be looking for lower highs and lower lows. I'm going to stop repeating that kind of overall bias, because it's my bias on Bitcoin. It's going to remain throughout all the altcoins on there as well. But if you lose the POC, which with a weekly money flow crossover is probably much more likely than it was back here, lose that POC, could be headed down to about $80 for Solana. Kind of long-winded there, but that's what I would be looking at. So there you go. Just clean this up a bit. And shout out to Wolf of Crypto, said, going back to the beginning of the stream, shout out to Wolf of Crypto. I salute you. If you choose to listen to me in 2x speed, may the crypto gods be with you. And the English gods, I guess. Shout out to you, bro. Does Market Cipher work on metals? Absolutely. Market Cipher works on anything, right? It's just like these volume profile strategies are transferable to any asset that you want to trade. We actually had somebody in here that I think they said that they were I think they said they had a 16K week using the volume profiles, not even on crypto. They were trading the NASDAQ. So it's 100%. I didn't invent these. These aren't like crypto-specific strategies. I didn't invent the volume profile. I didn't even invent the way I trade the volume profiles, right? I basically trade failed auctions. It's a very common old strategy, and they are 100% transferable to any asset that you want to trade, and Market Cipher as well, right? Obviously, we have silver and gold absolutely plummeting. As we've talked about, nothing goes up in a straight line forever. Massive dumps here on the metals. And one of the things that we were looking at here on at least gold, which I'll be honest, right, like, or was it, I think it was gold and silver, pretty much looking very similar. It was this 10-hour money flow, right? And why were we looking at that? Because we had the weekly red dot printing and an idea of a continuation of the downtrend, right? Which technically we could get, is this 10-hour money flow crossover. And if we look at gold, actually I think gold was the one that we were looking at it on. Weekly red dot printing, bearish divergences forming right at the Fibonacci extension level, lower highs, higher highs, weekly bearish divergence. Now the weekly money flow is still pretty strong in the green, right? It's not like you have your weekly money flow coming out like on Bitcoin or anything, but that weekly red dot was something we were looking at with our 10-hour money flow looking to potentially come out. That could have indicated a continuation to the downside, and not really the perfect setup, but it would be looked at and treated exactly the same. The same strategies I would use on crypto, I would use on gold or silver. And then we had the daily bearish divergences, which got ran through, right? Like in an uptrend, you got to be careful. Bull divs are not, or bear divs are not created the same in a bull market as they are in a bear market. Why? Well, because if the overall macro uptrend is going to be like this, right? Sure, you might be able to get a daily bearish divergence, but if the overall trend you're anticipating higher lows and higher highs, you would look at that daily bear div as more of a lackluster retracement and then a higher low and a higher high based off your money flow. So yeah, you can 100% use this on any asset you want. And let me just take a look here. 12-hour money flow kind of heading out. I mean, this money flow is so thick in the green because this thing just would not stop. And then we got such a fast flush down. Sometimes any indicator is going to have it's not going to be able to respond fast enough necessarily. But yeah, you got your 2-hour money flow coming out, 4-hour money flow. I mean, not even really tanking, to be honest. Just kind of curving to the downside a little bit there. But yeah, weekly bear divs, that was kind of the main thing into the key level of resistance, which is just a Fibonacci extension level. Again, I didn't invent these either. Tons of people look at these levels. Could be a big reason why the rejection wound up coming up in that zone. So, again, nothing goes up in a straight line forever. But really hard for me. You have the 2-week red dot. I think the monthly red dot too. Yeah, monthly red dot. Also printing. Not impossible to at least see some kind of a cool off here. Off those just bearish signals, right? So yeah, it would be like, it's going to take a long time for this money flow to reset. I mean, this is super strong money flow. It's really hard to say if that's the top or not, right? Because like when you look at your weekly money flow, it's like, no saying this can't be the top of the green wave, as we've said before. But it's just like really hard to say. But levels absolutely slapped there as far as the target goes. And I think silver, is it this? Whoops. Is it this chart? Yeah, silver literally tapping into that last target. 4-hour bearish divergences, 4-hour money flow coming out. If you see this money flow cross over into the red, you could potentially start looking for lower highs and lower lows. But of course, higher time frame perspective still remains a bit unclear. Hard for me to say this is super bearish. Maybe overbought, sure. But if this was looking something like this, right, like that would be super bearish for massive dumps. But this still, money flow is still technically strong in the green. But yeah, same thing, right? This money flow crossover into the red would indicate lower highs and lower lows, just like it does on crypto. Try to find, obviously it's going to oscillate a lot slower on something like gold. They all behave a little differently. But like you could see here, last time we had a massive blow off top. You come down, money flow is trending out, lower high, lower low, maybe pull it up on a weekly time frame. Right, look, weekly money flow crossover indicating a macro weekly downtrend. Lower high, lower low, lower high, right? Just continuation of the overall downtrend. Weekly money flow crosses green, macro trend to the upside, right? All going to be the same. I'm more familiar, and I kind of have my thumb on the pulse of how Market Cypher reacts with Bitcoin. I understand that weekly money flow crossovers for Bitcoin are very indicative of bear markets incoming. So it'll be the same thing for gold. Let's see. What will gold be worth when we have the capabilities of melting a planet that is 30% made of gold? Shout out to Bob Cobb. Shout out to you, bro. I like that name. Yeah, probably a lot less than it's worth now. And I mean, listen, we I saw a interview with Grant Cardone, and he was talking about like Bitcoin and gold, and he was like, listen, man, he goes, we live on a rock. He goes, if you don't think Elon Musk is going to, sick his Optimus robots on mining gold, once that happens, these things don't take breaks. They don't drink water. They don't pee. They don't do anything, right? They're just going to be going after gold or whatever they're doing. Like once we live in a world like that where we're going out and like finding planets of gold and being able to collect it, obviously we're probably pretty far off of that. Obviously that would probably not be great for the gold price. Shout out to Tony Rosas, says inverted head and shoulders to 83K. Maybe you're looking at something like this. Of course, not a pattern trader, but maybe something like that is what you're looking at. Maybe. Could be. Obviously not something I would personally trade. I would not trade the pattern personally. I think Tony probably knows that. But yeah, it could be. You're probably looking at that, something like this. Is that 83K target based off your technical measured move? Probably. So yeah, that could be plausible. But I will say this, in order to get that to come in, I would say flipping 80,500 is going to be the biggest level to get on top of, right? Or even like the 80K psychological level, which are very close, right? If I were to mark that off with like a box, obviously those are very close. There's 80,500, right? There's $80,000. I would say that is the biggest level to flip in order to potentially get that bigger move up. And 83K, just looking at your volume profile, right? Like 83 to 84K, little spike in volume. And then your bigger level with all your confluence that I'm looking at, right? No guarantee you have to get up there, right? Sitting closer to like 86 to 87K. So yeah, shout out to Tony Rosas. There's already a planet in our solar system totally populated by robots. Mars. Shout out to Cigar Tachi. They're just watching us from afar. How low do I think we're going in this bear market? Hard to, obviously very speculative call there. We actually covered this in the beginning of the live stream. If you want like more deep information on that, I would say 70 to 67K would be the first major target to look at. I'm probably more in the camp that I'd feel better down at like 59K for a potential bottom. But between 70 and 59K is the first major zone I'm looking at. Once we lose that, I'd be looking at 55 to 47K. Once we lose 47K, that's where I think you go down for the traditional drop towards 30K. But it's not necessarily my base case as of right now. We're going to pay a lot of attention to this cluster of volume up in here between 70 and 59K. There's no saying that you can't bottom out here, retest the all-time high, maybe slip it a little bit. Very similar to the previous cycle. So there's the all-time high, right? That would look something like this, right? There's your previous all-time high. Test it, slip it into the volume profile, maybe get some macro bull divs, send it up. Very similar to 2022. There's your all-time high. Test, break it. Massive weekly bull divs, send it back up. Really hard. We're really far away to even like really start making those calls because it all depends on how long we stay up here, right? If we wind up consolidating here for a long time and your weekly money flow continues to bleed into the red and we get another breakdown into, say, 70 to 67K or 70 to 59K, and then as we get the bounce there, maybe off some massive bull divs, maybe that money flow's coming up. If that's the case, it could look like the bottom might come in there. But it's just too far for me to make a call like that because I don't know what the price action is going to look like here. If we get down there and money flow is still early in its crossover on the weekly, it's going to be harder for me to say that's the bottom because if this is still early in the red, I'd probably still be looking for lower highs and lower lows. So it's all going to be if this, then that, right? But this would be the first major zone I'd be looking at. Shout out to Alex, said, yo, Frankie, Stock Mo said he thinks we'll know if we're in a crypto winter within the next 2 weeks. Thoughts? Shout out to Alex. I don't know Stock Mo personally, but I think personally, right, for me, potentially we've been in a bear market, right? I talk about this a lot. A lot of people, we started talking about the idea of maybe us being in a bear market as we were bearishly consolidating up here back in 2022 for all of the same reasons that we have right now. Massive weekly bear divs, weekly money flow coming out, very high probability. Again, this weekly money flow has a 100% hit rate for at least a lower low to come in, which technically we've already had here. So I guess you technically say it's already confirmed its 100% hit rate, but it's also had a 100% hit rate to indicate the continuation of the bear market. And here, a lot of people did not think we were in a bear market because they're saying, oh my God, we have higher lows, weekly hidden bullish divergence, but they're ignoring the idea of this money flow coming out, indicating the overall trend will continue down for lower highs and lower lows. So for me personally, right, like when we were looking at this, money flow coming out, this was very likely going to be the lower high, and we were already, the top was in. This was very likely already in a bear market, and this was kind of the final dump into the bottom, but nobody's accepting that, right? Everybody and their grandma's calling for 100K. They see the higher low, which is totally valid. It is a higher low, but not all higher lows are created equal when you understand the trend, the cycle timing, the bearish confirmations, the money flow, etc. So a lot of people didn't believe we were in a bear market here, and then what happens? You finally, and there's no bearish narratives as well. We cover that all the time. No, there's no reason to have like a bearish sentiment here because like there's no bearish news. Price dumps and people are like, there's no reason to be bearish. We're making a higher low. Bitcoin's more fundamentally bullish than ever. There's no real reason for this to go into a bear market, but oftentimes the signs of the bear market coming are on the charts before the narratives come in, and then eventually you get the Terra Luna collapse, the narratives come in, we get the big dump, and then this is where people say, okay, now we're entering a bear market. The problem with that is we had been in a bear market for a very long time, and on this dump, we started to look for the bottom to come in where, everyone's looking to buy this low, the bull market's not over, there's no reason to be bearish, and then once you get the big break to put in, start forming the bottom and start accumulating, right, they're saying, now we're in a bear market, now this is going to start a massively bigger trend, let's look towards 8K, let's look towards 5K, 3K, whatever. But at that point, they're too late. right? And we've talked about the idea being exactly the same, like not only from a sentiment cycle standpoint, but also a narrative standpoint. Higher lows forming, no bearish news, right? Higher lows, same thing, weekly bullish divergence. Sure, that could be bullish for a bounce, but that wouldn't necessarily be all-time highs. And we're very clear about not looking for all-time highs here because of our money flow coming out. We were anticipating lower high, lower low. Again, not because I'm a genie, not because I'm a wizard, not because I have a crystal ball, which I definitely don't have. Definitely don't have it. Don't check that. But it's all based off money flow, right? It's all jokes, right? It's all based off the TA, all based off money flow. And it's probably not going to be until if we get a big capitulation, maybe bearish narratives come in and we start just absolutely nuking to the downside where people will be like, okay, now we're in a bear market. Now we're going to continue down for X amount of time. And it could be the same situation where everyone's scared, right? But eventually we're looking to see some kind of accumulation form and then a new bull market, right? And then the people who think that we just entered a bear market here are late. Meanwhile, we saw the potentials of a bear market here pretty much on the loss of $108,000, right? So that's my 2 cents. I think maybe in the next 2 to 4 weeks, I think we'll know, when we're going to get a potential last big capitulation down, if it's going to come. Of course, I can't guarantee what I think is going to play out either. But again, it's all based off money flow, right? Not money flow, but all based off actual information on the charts. So that's my 2 cents. You don't want to be late thinking that like if we get down here, we're just entering a bear market. You're very likely, even if we go a little lower than this range, you're very likely going to be like, oh, well, this makes sense. We're going down way more. And then you might just start forming accumulation and sending it back to the upside. You don't want to be late to the party, right? No, bull market. Not really, right? We've been in a bear market. That was the last flush. Looking for the bottom, send it, right? And then all those people who were late to the bear market, right, they're thinking, like, oh, this is going to be a lower high, lower low, 3K, right? CME gap, 3K, right? Like tons of people calling for stuff like that. And, it just winds up scooting to the upside and then they wind up buying higher, which is not what you want to do. Personally, for me. Not financial advice, of course. So that's my 2 cents. There you go. Yeah, shout out to Chikan. Yes, the weekly money flow is now in the red. The dreaded money flow. We had it on the thumbnail when it happened. It's happening. Oh, my God. I saw the crystal balls. Shout out to Bitfrog. You're lying. It's not. Oh, no. It's leaking magical juice. I walked into that, guys. I'm sorry. It's leaking magical crystal ball juice all over the studio. DCA starts for me after November 2026. After we have data on the midterms, by then we will be below the 200-week moving average, most likely, and I will continue to DCA until it pops back up. Shout out to Mr. Market. We could take a look at the 200-week moving average as well, because, of course, the 50-week, the 100-week, the 200-week, right? So when we look at this, right, lose the 50-week, we know it's been impossible on every other cycle once you lose this to get back above, right? Once you lose the 100-week with the weekly money flow crossover, you start the bigger drop down, right? And then once you eventually get to the 200-week, you start bing-bonging around. That's kind of where the accumulation starts. Even here, lose the 50-week, lose the 100-week, big dump down, money flow crosses red. You start that accumulation kind of period, right? Of course, black swan event here, but still the bottom was in, right? Come to 2014. Yeah, he didn't really have all the information here, right? But you lose the 50-week, 100-week breaks with the weekly money flow crossover, big dump to the downside. Accumulation starts around where that 200-week is, and then you find the bottom. But the thing with this stuff is like a lot of people will say, oh, you can't lose the 200-week, you can't lose the 200-week, right? But then, what happens here, right? It's not all one-to-one. Right, you lose the 200-week. This is probably a big reason why people are like, oh, my God, we're going way, way, way lower. You kind of just slip it. And this is why we pay attention to the massive signals. If you guys have been here for a while from the past bear market, we even made a video, again, not to brag, but just to show you why we pay attention to the charts. One of the big things that we were looking at to indicate if the bottom was in was potential weekly bullish divergences. And in that video, I think we were coming down here somewhere. I don't remember exactly where we were, but it was before we wound up getting the big low. Looking for potential lower lows on price action, higher lows on our momentum waves with the weekly, giving us the weekly bullish divergence, right? And at that point, you're getting the weekly bull div after you have a massive trend to the downside and a massive red money flow wave. That could be the bottom. and eventually you see money flow continue back up, and then you look to rotate back into another bull market. And I think the way I drew it there, which, I'm never going to pretend like we got it spot on, right? You're never going to get it to the dollar, but I think what I was looking at, the lowest I was looking was between $12,000 and $14,000. So I think when we drew it something like this. Maybe you get the lower low into like 12 or 14K, you get the bullish divergence, but you're never going to get it to the tick bottom. And of course, right, once you put in that weekly bull div and you don't hit 12 to 14K, you could say to yourself, okay, well, now maybe we're not going to go down to 12 to 14K. That weekly bull div indicated that was very likely the low. Right, if we kept going down, right, 12 to 14K was kind of the lowest I would have liked to go to see that bull div form, because likely if we broke down below that, this wouldn't be a bullish divergence. So, hate to try to explain everything in like every single detail. I know it gets confusing for people, but let's see. Oh yeah, let's take a look at Zcash. It kind of hurts me to look at Zcash sometimes because we had the. We had the short position in the premium Discord from literally the most recent top, and it has proven. I'll even pull up the original setup that we had. I think I have it here. There it is, right? And our thought process here, I'm not going to go through the whole thing because I've covered this a lot. We saw this being a very likely retracement for a lower high and a lower low to come based off the daily money flow coming out. We had the short. We had the initial short setup here at the value area low, which was also a golden pocket retracement. We saw the confirmations. We took the trade in the premium. I accidentally meant to take a partial TP, I think down here, maybe down here, and ended up accidentally closing the entire position. But the overall kind of thought process of that was that it was very likely going to turn into a swing short. Now we're currently... This has come down 48% with the short entry right here. So it kind of pains me because I don't hold this anymore. But it also makes me really happy because I know a lot of people are still holding the short from the premium. And the kind of final thought process here was if that daily money flow turns red, we can anticipate the continuation of the downtrend, talking about the key levels even on the live stream, right? The lower highs to look for. Golden Pocket 786 weekly MPOC. We talked about this on the live stream, right? If we get a bounce here, this is the place where the next lower high would likely come in at before seeing a new low come after, right? And the final play of this is to essentially... Where is it? Is to essentially, or eventually, right, the final target for this, when we're looking for lower highs and lower lows, if we put the lower low in, which we've already done technically, but if this continues down, that next main target's going to be about 240 at our previous value area high. And when we look at a weekly, look at that weekly money flow. That weekly money flow is headed to the downside, could be indicating a continuation of the macro downtrend. Now, of course, this green dot could give you a little bit of a retracement back up or some kind of push to the upside. But when that money flow trends out, the overall anticipation will be lower highs and lower lows. Excuse me. So, playing out perfectly there. Not going to lie. But it kind of pains me to just watch it nuke without me. But yeah, weekly money flow is not in the red yet. If I had to guess, right, might be a high probability of that eventually being the case, but this is not necessarily red just yet. We could check the 6-day. 6-day money flow still kind of flat there. 5-day money flow trying to trend out. 4-day money flow trying to trend out. 3-day money flow trying to trend out. And look at your 2-day, right? Daily money flow was what gave us the anticipation of low, lower high, lower low. Now played out, right? Money flow crosses red. Continuation of the downtrend. Overall, break the lows. That 2-day looks like it's following suit, right? So lower highs, lower highs and lower lows could be the overall anticipation. I would watch that 2-day money flow to give you the confidence there. If that money flow crosses red on the 2-day, even on bounces to the upside, still could be looking for that value area high. Now, where would be the next area to look for a rejection, right? And I can't guarantee it, just like I can't guarantee it here or any of the other places. Just the high probability areas to look, in my opinion, would just be very simple. Right? Why did I pull this Fibonacci retracement? It's pulled from the lower high to the lower low, swing high to swing low. That's where you're looking for the lower high as long as your money flows in the red. If we're looking at it from a 2-day perspective, where would I like to see the next? And you also had confluence there as well. But if we pull from the lower high to the low, you now have a new zone here. And I'm not going to lie, these are literally just getting hit every single time and being the levels. Maybe it's time for that to just fake out. But of course, the probabilities there are going to be in the favor of the lower high. Can now hide this because this is already tapped. this would be the next, very clean area to look for a potential lower high and a lower low, potentially targeting the value area high at about 239. Maybe you get a 2-day green dot. Maybe you get a little ebb or flow, right? Green and red dots indicate the ebbs and flows. Money flow indicates the overall trends, right, or overall trends. So a green dot could be an ebb or flow to the upside, and if that money flow continues out, crosses red, that little ebb or flow would be lackluster ebb or flow for a lower high and a lower low. Ebb or flow, lower low. And again, whether you're looking to trade it or not, I would say the next major target to the downside would still be 239.58 at the value area high of the previous range. So we'll see what happens here. Let's see if we have any weekly MPOC confluence here now. It'd be crazy. Look at that. It's like literally the exact same situation. Not only do you have the Fibonacci retracement, but you also have the weekly MPOC, which you also had confluent with the other level. That gave us the lower high before the lower low. And another local target you can look at is you have a weekly MPOC sitting at 269 as well, right? So that could be kind of a local target. But that's kind of what I would look at here on Zcash. If you get a retracement, let's check the daily. Yeah, daily green dot, maybe looking to print somewhat soon. Remember, we also could be, right, essentially, like we looked at on the daily for Bitcoin, when you're in a bear market kind of scenario, right, price likes to spend less time in the green and more time in the red. So, I don't want to, discount the idea that, maybe you could just grind to the downside. There's no guarantee that you have to come back up here. And, of course, you could pull your local fibs from this lower high, right? I'm not going to pull up every single level. You've already tested this. So maybe the lower high already came in. But I would say if you're going to get a bigger retracement, I would say that daily green dot is the thing to watch, just like on Bitcoin, with the 90 and 80-minute money flow coming up, right? If you get that daily green dot and this 90-minute money flow crosses green, 80-minute money flow crosses green, that could indicate an 80-minute trend continuation to the upside into your next big zone. And then you could see if you're going to get the big rejection or if you're going to snap that 786 and push up higher. But that would be the overall general thought process here moving forward for Zcash. Let's see. Oh, yeah, when we were taking a look at the 200-week moving average. That does sit at about $58,000, which is interesting. That's interesting, guys. Why is that interesting? What else is at about $58,000? The same levels we've talked about before looking at the moving average, which, of course, is going to be. Look at that. You got your 200-week coming in confluence at that value area low, which would just simply track. If I wasn't looking at these moving averages, again, assuming if we get this continuation down, lose this value area high, come to the POC, lose the POC, come down to the low, this moving average, right, obviously going to kind of continue wiggling around, deviate below like last cycle, get back above, right? Just like I explained it on just the volume profile perspective, you do have the confluence of the 200-week coming in there. Very interesting. I don't know how that happens. And you might be wondering, why is that POC moved? Well, we're on the Bitstamp chart now. We were looking at the Bybit chart before, which is the levels that I prefer to look at. Any exchange you look at might give you different levels, but I prefer to look at the Bybit chart. 200-week EMA. Dang, I already deleted those levels. Let's see here. Look at that. Mafia finding confluence. I love it. I absolutely love it. So again, right, and there's your actual, oh, interesting. I was able to pull that POC back to where Bybits is. Look at that. Right on the value area high. Shout out to the Mafia out there finding confluence. I love it. I love it. So yeah, there you go. Shout out to Ricky. Says, my toilet is a 5-gallon bucket outside. My trailer roof leaks like a waterfall, and I survive on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but I'm still stacking those mofo sats. Let's go. Shout out to Ricky. Ricky's smart. Ricky Ricardo. Shout out to you, brother. We'll hit 58 to 62 p.m. I don't know what PM necessarily stands for. But maybe $58 to $62,000, potentially what you're saying. Shout out to Gabriel. Also 56 is the on-chain realized price. Yeah, I was talking to somebody about this over the weekend. So much confluence to be found. Yeah, 100%. That's what you want to find, right? Like even from a not only from a technical perspective, but also just from like an on-chain perspective too. If you see that stuff lining up with your technical levels, right? Like I always explain it. If you have a chart, right? The chart's doing this, right? And you're looking at your current price action, and let's just say you have a level with many confluences, right? And then maybe you have a level right here, right? And then above you, you might have a level here, but then up here you have a bunch of confluences, right? And maybe those confluences are a daily, a weekly MPOC, a monthly level. Golden pocket all together. This is the big area of interest. This is where you have a high probability of a big reaction coming in. Does that mean you should ignore the single level? Not necessarily, right? But you're not going to put as much weight on this level as this level. So maybe you get a little reaction here, but eventually if you get up here, that's the higher probability for big reactions. Same to the downside, right? Maybe you come down, you get a little bounce, but you're better off getting a bigger reaction, or much more expected to get a bigger reaction off of the confluent level, right? And just like you could stack confluence on a chart, you could add the chart levels with something like realized price or something like that. Hype. Yeah, shout out to OCB. Thank you for the super chat, bro. Yeah, we could check out Hype. Okay, so let's take a quick look at Hype, or Jipe, as some people like to call it. Let's actually pull it up on the alt chart here. Where is our Hype chart? Is it the Binance chart? I know we looked at this last week. It's going to be hard for me to say what we were looking for until there it is. All right, so Hype was one of those coins that did look a lot different than other things, right? When we looked at the higher time frames, right, we had come down to our value area low. We had some really, really clean bullish divergences, obviously on much higher time frames, such as the 4-day, the 3-day, right? You had these all over the place. Obviously gives you a big bounce to the upside. You had this major level of resistance between the golden pocket 786 retracement. Wasn't even really able to hold that, or hold it or reject it. Attempting to potentially flip this. But now when we take a look at this, yeah, we have no weekly money flow to look at. You even had a weekly bull div here. 3-day money flow attempting to come up. 4-day money flow is just cross red. So I would still be careful here from the long-term perspective. Of course, this wasn't the full Fibonacci retracement. This was a local retracement. Again, you don't know whether you're going to get the rejection from your local fib or your bigger fib pulled from this high. And then, of course, you're going to have your full Fibonacci retracement pulled from this top. But no real reaction here at the local fib, right? You kind of just break above it. You might be trying to flip this to support. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to hide this, right? Because I don't want to totally delete it. All right, you have the weekly MPOC there. I would say if you could hold this weekly MPOC, the next big level to look at above is going to be the golden pocket value area low, 35.50 up to about 36.69. And then above that, right, this is, of course, the Fibonacci zone is pretty wide here. But your golden pocket value area low confluence, I would even say maybe this is the bigger level because you have a weekly and a monthly naked point of control in confluence with your 786 and the point of control of your range. I'll go local here for you guys in a second. But I would say, like, from a higher time frame perspective, if you don't get the rejection from the fib level that we just tapped, this would be the next big place to look for a massive lower high, if you're going to get it, of course. And then once you get up there, right, like, it's still not really over until you can break out of this value area. So I'll actually pull both of these. Let me actually just do this. Whoops. And then pull this full fib as well. right? So I'm not necessarily going to talk about all-time highs. Why would I not talk about all-time highs? Well, of course, your higher time frame money flow. What does this indicate, right? Even with bull divs, right? This bull div technically still has money flow in the red. Sure, you can get a big bounce, but it's still at risk of lower highs and lower lows. If it doesn't come in here, this is the next place to look. Once you get above the POC of the range, and this weekly and monthly MPOC, I would say the value area high is your biggest level. It wouldn't be until you flip that 786 at $51 that I'd be looking for a new all-time high. And, of course, with this money flow, the anticipation is that you could very likely put in lower highs and lower lows. So this would be the next level to look at, 35.50. I would say up to the 786 at about 41.39. Now, coming into the local levels, money flow on the 4-hour, pretty flat in the green. 5-hour money flow crossing into the green, 8-hour in the green, 10-hour in the green. Yeah, 2-week green dot is printing. I don't have, like, any other information there on the 2-week. Unfortunately, no monthly information. So, again, a little hard to call that long term. See, 90-minute money flow crossing into the green. No daily green dot. Daily money flow trying to cruise up as well. This is kind of wish-washy, right? Just because there's not a ton of confluence. Like, the only thing that's clear to me here is that 4-day money flow is coming out. And if you're going to get fake outs on the lower time frames where this comes into the green, back into the red for a little trend up for a lower high, like, this is all smoothed out on the higher time frames, right? So I would just pay attention to these key levels. And then locally here, yeah, hard to say. You don't have a 4-hour bearish divergence. Money flow's kind of flat in the green. 2-hour money flow trying to come out. I don't really see any significant market cipher B116 strategies. You have the 90-minute money flow crossover into the green, but you don't have the 90-minute green dot. So that's not to say it can't continue up. It's just very hard to call that based off the signals here. You got a little 30-minute bear div here. Not even really. Yeah, kind of wish-washy signals there. So I'll stick with the higher time frames there. Next major target to the upside again, 35.53 to 36.82. Get above that, PLC 786, and, you know, of course, if you could flip that 786, next level to look at would be that value area high. So there you go. Could double top at the all-time high. Probability is 70% of that happening. Shout out to Bob Cobb. Could happen. Definitely could. Definitely not impossible. I don't know exactly what those statistics are based off. I'm not saying they're not real. But depending on where you get those statistics, maybe. Definitely not impossible. You know, because when you have these 3-day, like, again, you could have bullish confirmations, right? Like, for example, like, oh, like, I mean, pretty bull div. Right now, on a 2-day, this has money flow coming up. Like, that could indicate a continuation of the upside. But when it comes to those higher time frames, right, like that money flow, if this is going to be an early money flow crossover into the red, very high chances of a lower high and a lower low. Now, if you did get up here for a double top, the only problem with a double top is, like, again, it would depend on what money flow looked like for me. But I don't, double top is just kind of a way that I would describe price action. Yeah, I don't know. I would much prefer a lower high. And again, not that a double top is impossible. And honestly, on hype, that's even kind of hard to call, right? If I had 3-day money flow cleanly trending into the red, right, and not necessarily trying to come up, if I had the 3-day not trying to come up, if all these higher time frames looked like this, it would be very high probability for me to say lower high, lower low. But you just have a lot of mixed signals here on hype, and it is kind of a standalone thing. There's not really a lot of other stuff that is doing the same thing, right? It's not like ETH is getting a massive move up with massive bull divs or anything like that, at least right now. So it is kind of just like a standalone incident. So yeah, it's kind of a wild card. Hype's been a wild card for a little while, ever since those divs. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Seawall at 0. Shout out to Dragos. Oh, man. If Bitcoin goes to 0, guys, free Bitcoin. Free Bitcoin. That's a risk-free trade right there. I have no alt. Shout out to Incognito. Come on, baby. Looks like the end of the 2021 run. Yeah, shout out to Incognito. Yeah, there's a reason, guys. We pull that fractal almost every live stream. It is really kind of nuts. Doesn't get really any more. Where are we at? Doesn't really get any more similar than that. Like literally the same thing. And, right? Lose the 100 week, capitulate, or not capitulate, I wouldn't really say necessarily capitulation, but massive dump, right? There's your other moving average, little bounce. You lose that down to the 200 week, maybe the bottom, right? And again, I think this is, just based off the fact that, like, I would never trade just based off of, like, what has happened in the past, like, being a high probability outcome. But, like, it really would be kind of wild to see that play out, like, exactly like 2021. You deviate below the 200 week, you reclaim, you push up, bull market. Somebody said, what are the chances of, what's my opinion on 30K by October? Timing is really hard to call. I mean, you could use the timing of the cycles to try to predict that kind of stuff, which I have this all marked out. What do we have? Those are the tops to tops, right? Obviously very similar in every single cycle. But if we go, where's it at? Right, top to bottom, right? Back here was a little different, 413 days, not even really that far off. But the top to the bottom in 2013 to 2014 was 413 days. 2017 to 2018, 364 days. 2021 to 2022, 378 days, right? So if you just kind of ballpark that from the top, current top to, the expected, kind of general timing, that brings you to October. Now 30K, again, I'm going to be very careful between 70 and 50 in the mid 50s. But if we did go down to 30K, right, that would just be like cycle repeating, right? If it is just going to be exactly what we saw in the previous cycle, we wind up getting the drop down to the value area low near about 30K, right? It would make a lot of sense for that to come in like this, right? Just very similar timing. So it really depends, though, if you're going to get like the traditional bear market bottom or if you're going to kind of get the early bottom to come in here, which I think would catch a lot of people off guard. So I don't know. We'll see. But I would say, like, if you're just basing it off the 4-year cycle, whether it's 30K, 60K, 50K, whatever it is, 47K, wherever the bottom does come in, like off the 4-year cycles, it would generally be expected around like September, October, maybe November. You're never going to get it to the day, of course. So there you go. We'll never see 30K again. Definitely possible. But yeah, we'll have to see. Time will tell. Time will tell. Coming back into the lower time frames here, guys. Let me take off the moving averages. Yeah, I don't want to over-explain things here, guys. If you just tuned in, scrub back to the beginning of the stream. We covered all the low time frame price action, exactly what I'm looking at for a potential continuation to the upside. Some of the bullish signals, again, 12-hour green dot, 45-minute money flow crossover into the green if we can get that to come back up. Talk about the key level to flip in order for the bigger retracement, and then those big, major key levels of resistance that I will be looking at. I won't pull them up exactly. You could scrub back to the beginning of the stream, but for potential lower highs and lower lows. So we'll see what happens here. Daily money flow still in the red. And shout out to the Mafia and everybody who stuck around through this brutal drop and was able to see the TA manifest itself here, right? I feel crazy, guys. Sometimes I get up here and I feel crazy seeing that weekly money flow crossover, right? I mean, I never really feel crazy, but it kind of feels crazy. I feel like I look crazy when a lot of people don't want to hear that stuff, but I only bring up raw information on these live streams, guys. I'm never going to give you false hopium, and I always look back every single time, whether I look back to what I was talking about in 2021, people hated me, then thanked me. Even here, it's like, of course, the Mafia making tons of money there on the trades and the premium, and even some of you guys taking the information on the live stream and using it. But it's I've never looked in the past and been like, oh, thank God I was senselessly bullish, right? Like 108K was the major level where we started kind of sending the warning shots that this was not looking good longer term. And I could only imagine if I was just sitting up here saying, don't worry about the bearish divergences. Don't worry about the money flow coming out. Don't worry about all the daily money flow coming out. Don't worry about any of the technicals, guys. All-time highs. Smash the like button. That's what everyone wants to hear. But I've never looked in the past and been like, thank God I did that, right? I've always said, thank God I stick to the charts and I only give raw information. That's not to say the information or the TA is always going to be correct. But there was no reason to be looking for all-time highs here. As a matter of fact, there was reasons to be looking for the big drop. And I'm not just going to come up here and say what I want, what I know people want to hear. I have to, I feel a responsibility being up here and just giving actual honest analysis, right? There was just no way for me to kind of argue a massive new all-time high coming in here. We can entertain the idea, it's not impossible, but when you look at the technicals, right, the argument for the move to the downside was way stronger based off the technical evidence. And even down here, lower highs, lower lows, right? I don't want to say that. But of course, I look back and I say, thank God we're not calling for all-time highs. We're looking for the lackluster retracements, the lower highs, and the lower lows. And, not only talking about it, but teaching you guys how to do this yourself because I'm not special. I'm not a genius. I was not as good at as this in the beginning, right? This took me a long time to get to where I am now, not only from a trading perspective, but just a technical analysis perspective, market experience. I've seen these cycles play out. I've felt the bullish, the bullish emotion, right? Or the emotion of the bottom, the bottom's in 100K, right? Like those emotions that I've, the experience of going through times like that where the masses are disagreeing with the charts and seeing the charts just play out, right? It's that market experience that can help you just stick to the plan. So if you take anything away from this stream, number 1, learn volume profiles. Number 2, subscribe to the channel. Number 3, the charts are the truth. Always remember that. And I will check back in with you guys tomorrow. We'll probably go live during the day tomorrow a little bit earlier. I had the premium live stream earlier today, so I couldn't go live as early as we typically have been. But we'll be live during the day tomorrow. Thank you guys all for tuning in. I appreciate every single one of you guys. Shout out to Crush It Nasty. Shout out to Cryptic Crab and Cigar Itachi, Jesse, Rob the Crypto Snob. I don't know if he's still here, but shout out to Rob. Shout out to Dave Hagen, Jake from Reddit, or Jake from State Farm, and shout out to Nadia. Thank you guys for being here. Smash the like button on your way out if you've made any money on the shorts or you just have fun here on the live streams with the Mafia. We appreciate it. Helps us out endlessly. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Buckle up. love you, my quant. Shout out to Terp. I don't know how to say that whole name. But thank you guys for being here. Smash the like button. Rob is here. I'll see you guys tomorrow. That's all I got. Hasta pasta. Frankie Candles out. Bing bong.
Here we go, at the top of the class on a roll, and it's time to run it up, yeah you know. Maxed out, put the pedal to the floor, ayy, on the roll, here we go. Yeah, we winning by a landslide. Never see me coming on my landmine. Yeah, I ain't taking orders in command, like, yeah, you about to see me on demand, like, on demand. If you ain't know, you about to understand. Yeah, I got the team by my side, right hand. Yeah, take it to a string, you ain't seen it like that. Yeah, and it's the dream, and we coming for the bag. Yeah, and we ain't ever going back now. Future expedited, now we on the fast track now. They won't lend a hand, now they see us on the map now. It's time to act out. Here we go, at the top of the class on a roll, and it's time to run it up, yeah you know. Maxed out, put the pedal to the floor, ayy, on the roll, here we go, yeah, at the top of the class on a roll, ayy, and it's time to run it up, yeah you know, yeah, maxed out, put the pedal to the floor, yeah, on the roll, here we go, here we go. Here we go, at the top of the class on a roll, and it's time to run it up, yeah you know. maxed out, put the pedal to the floor. Hey, on the road, here we go, yeah. At the top of the class on the road, hey, and it's time to run it up, yeah, you know, yeah. Maxed out, put the pedal to the floor, yeah. On the road, here we go,